Hi, my name is Carter Learhoff, and I'm here to teach you about the history of climate change, what climate change is, and what we can do to stop it. Scientists have taken ice cores out of ice sheets and looked at tree rings in very old trees to study the effects of carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases on the nature and ecology of Earth. Their evidence have found that the greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere is actually warming the Earth at about 10% the speed as it should be, most likely due to us. That human activities like the use of fossil fuels, deforestation, and land use change over the past 6 decades are responsible for this extreme change in climate. Scientists believe that it is the heat-trapping nature of carbon dioxide which is causing the Earth to warm. The atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide is the largest human cause of global warming. This has increased 40% since the industrial era. Like I said earlier, Earth's climate is changing faster than at any point in human history. This means that in the next 100 years, many people could lose their jobs and have to find new places to live and work. All of NASA's research has shown that high temperature extremes and heavy precipitation events are leading to the shrinking of glaciers and the warming of seas across the world. They're becoming more acidic as well. Flooding is also becoming more frequent across the United States. Growing seasons are becoming longer and shorter in different parts of the world. And many different species are now moving locations or going extinct. Large wildfires are also occurring more often. All of the trends that I've just gone through are consistent and are expected to increase. The modern era of climate change has begun at the industrial area, when more companies began to build factories and let off more carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This caused, like I said earlier, the increase of greenhouse gases to warm the Earth and lead to climate change. Most previous changes in the Earth's climate were caused by slight variations in the Earth's orbit around the Sun. Our current warming trend is different. Scientists from NASA believe that 95% of Earth's current warming trend is caused by humans. Our current warming trend is also increasing at an unprecedented rate compared to other warming trends in Earth's history. I've decided to take to the streets to see what students at CHS are doing to help stop climate change.
I unplug my electronics when I'm not using them.
My family recycles paper and plastic and cardboard, and we also have a compost pile.
I put ethanol in my car.
I recycle.
I drive a Prius.
I don't litter.
My contribution is to assist students to understand what the most important ideas are so that they can best handle global warming.
I unplug my chargers when I'm done charging my electronics.
Now I'm going to go through some of the purposes of international treaties and agreements that other countries have about climate change. The major one is the Paris Agreement. This was signed in 2016, and it was signed by 195 countries. Its main goal is to keep the carbon dioxide emissions down across the planet and to stop our global temperature from rising 2 degrees Celsius. Most of the economic effects of it will be put into place in 2020, and the economic purposes, I guess you could say, would be to give some money from the richer countries to the poorer countries so they can develop their economies in a safer, greener way to produce less carbon dioxide and less greenhouse gases. The main purpose of the Paris Agreement is to stop climate change and to combat it in any way possible. Now, of course, there are many other treaties and agreements and laws that other countries have put into effect, that the United States have put into effect, and that the United Nations have put into effect. But each one of these having its own impact. Some are to focus on the emissions of greenhouse gases, while others are more focusing on the amounts of waste and pollution that we're putting into the earth. But each one has its own special course, whether it's pollution or greenhouse gases or even population control, which is another big factor of climate change, which is there's more people on Earth, which means we have to make more food, more cattle means more CO2 in the atmosphere, more people means more garbage, which means more pollution. So you could say that that is one of the problems of climate change, but that is not one of the problems that I will be going into today. Now, the origin of the Paris Agreement, which is the agreement, law, treaty, pact between countries, is the one I'm going to look at the most because it's the most important one, and it is the one that the United States has actually, Donald Trump has decided to pull us out of, which I personally think is a bad idea. The origin of it was, like I said, in 2016, and it was to strengthen the global response to the threat of climate change by keeping global temperature rise this century below 2 degrees Celsius. As I said earlier, the United States was once involved in this treaty, but Donald Trump has tried to take us out of it, which is unfortunate. For the most part, a lot of these treaties are experimental. A lot of the laws and things are all experimental, and it's people trying something to see if they will work. I got into a discussion with Mr. Kuchera, the science teacher, and he said a lot of the things could be that we're doing could be worse for the environment, could have worse effects. But my response was, we have to try something, and if it doesn't work, we learn from our mistakes, because obviously we made a big mistake by letting climate change get as far as it has. So we need to take matters into our own hands and try to reverse it, or at least slow it down and stop it as best as we can. But for the most part, there is a positive impact on these treaties because it is a morale point, it is a call to action for countries to do something, because people may feel helpless during this time, like you and me may feel helpless, because we can't do anything like a large country can. So it is partly to give morale and boost to people that we're doing something to change, and if it doesn't work, we have someone to blame. Now, to close the video, I'm going to go through my 3 compelling questions. How and why have perspectives on climate change changed over time? Climate change, as I said earlier in the video, didn't become even a thought in people's mind until the mid-19th century. So before that, people had no idea what they were doing was bad. Now, we've gone through different stages of green movements and other things like that. It kind of goes in a wave type thing of people caring and not caring and so on. What are some of the causes and effects of climate change? As I said earlier, some of the causes are us putting CO2 and greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and polluting. Some of the effects are rising sea levels, rising acidity in sea levels, driving species extinct, and the change of climate and extreme weather patterns. What are the origins, purposes, and impact of laws, treaties, and international agreements surrounding climate change? I went through this earlier with the Paris Agreement. And the origins are, obviously, people are worried about climate change. They want to change the climate. They want to fix it. So that's how these get started. The purposes are obviously to stop climate change, fix climate change, or at least, at the very least, slow it down. And they're having a pretty good impact so far. Now, the Paris Climate Agreement doesn't go into full effect until 2020. So we are still waiting to see how that one will turn out. Thank you for watching my video, and now present-day Carter, who is not sitting in his basement at 11 o'clock at night, will answer the questions you have.
Peel the avocado, peel the avocado, peel the avocado, peel the avocado. Guacamole, 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 guacamole.